Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. Northwest Territories voters have had their say and chosen the members of the Territories' 20th Legislative Assembly. It was a long night full of delayed results, overjoyed winners, and incumbents who lost their seats. Because for the third election in a row, change was the overarching theme of the night. Luke Carroll takes a look at how it all played out.
Just 4 of the 11 incumbents will be returning to the Legislative Assembly. And after a term defined by crises, some voters may be hoping for a different approach to disaster management. But with new budget pressures from things like the wildfire evacuation, major changes aren't likely anytime soon. There will be changes, at least in some of the faces sitting in the ledge. A number of key figures in the last assembly won't be returning. House Speaker Frederick Blake Jr. lost his bid for a 4th term, and previous cabinet ministers Polly China and Diane Archie were both given the boot. It won't be an entirely fresh House, though, when the legislature reconvenes in December. 3 MLAs will be returning after a hiatus. Danny McNeely in Sawtoo and Kieran Testart in Range Lake both served in the 18th Assembly, but weren't re-elected in 2019. Robert Hawkins returns as the MLA for Yellowknife Centre after being defeated by Julie Green in 2015. And then there's the 3 acclaimed ridings, Monfouille, Yellowknife South, and Cam Lake, which are all incumbents. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Yellowknife.
So 12 of 19 ridings will have new MLAs. That has been decided. But as for the Premier and ministers, that's still up in the air. Leanie Lambrink has more for us on that.
Let's start off with the process. The NWT has a consensus government. MLAs will decide themselves who becomes premier and who becomes a minister. They'll put their names forward for both roles 2 weeks from now. They'll present their platforms and answer questions from other members. A week after that, they're expected to vote by way of a secret ballot. Any MLA can make a bid for premier. Typically, they'd serve at least 1 term first, and convention suggests the next premier should come from outside of Yellowknife. The last 3 assemblies have had a premier from the capital region. RJ Simpson is the only MLA who has definitely said yes, he'll put his name forward. Shane Thompson, Richard Ajericon, Lisa Semler, Danny McNeely, Kieran Testart, and Caroline Wozniak have all told CBC News they're undecided at this point. Janeway Allen Armstrong did not want to comment. Caitlin Cleveland says she will not run for premier. I've also reached out to Robert Hawkins and haven't heard back. But before the polls closed, he said he wasn't interested. MLAs will choose the territory's premier and cabinet on December 7th. Leanie Lambrink, CBC News, Yellowknife.
And we'll have more coverage of the NWT election for you tonight later in the show. Stephanie Erlbacher-Fox will break down some of the biggest challenges for the upcoming assembly and share her thoughts on why voters chose this group of MLAs. That's coming up in the second half of our show. Now, the issues businesses are facing were a big focus in this election. After COVID and the summer's evacuations, many are struggling right now. And it's not just an issue in the north. Across the country, businesses are finding it hard to stay afloat, and now they're about to face even more financial pressure as the deadline approaches to repay federal government-backed pandemic loans. Nicole Williams explains.
As the holiday season approaches, business is picking up.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. But like, what's your buddy?
Good news for the many shops and restaurants in Ottawa, some who say it hasn't been the same since the pandemic.
The outlook is pretty bleak. Nationwide, you're looking at 50% of businesses are operating either at a loss or just breaking even.
A bleak outlook after a bleak few years because of the pandemic, which saw nearly 900,000 small businesses and nonprofits across the country tap into the Canada Emergency Business Account, or CEBA, an interest-free loan introduced in April 2020 to help businesses during the height of the pandemic. Each received up to $60,000, with a total of $49 billion paid out.
It was a lifeline at the time. It didn't cover a lot of our expenses, but it did help for sure.
Businesses originally had until the end of this year to pay the money back, and if they did, the federal government would forgive up to $20,000 of the loan. But pandemic recovery has been slow and many asked for more time. The federal government did push back the deadline, but only by 3 weeks.
It's just math. You can't afford it.
This accountant says that's not enough time. Many of his clients took the loan and are still struggling. He argues in some cases, loans should be forgiven entirely.
This thing is not fair to pay right away or you lose 20 grand. And also it is also not fair because interest rate went up.
More than 13,000 people have signed a petition agreeing with him, asking that the government consider the impacts to small businesses.
It's going to be a choice between paying that off and then paying off taxes or paying payroll.
The federal government says the deadlines are final and that the flexibility already shown to businesses is enough. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
Iqaluit's new city council met for the first time last night following October's election. And while councillors chose a new deputy mayor, they also have to figure out how to fill a vacant seat. Councillor Jack Anoak stepped down from his position last week after being charged with impaired driving. Iqaluit Mayor Solomon Ava says council hasn't yet decided how to fill the seat. Municipal legislation allows council to choose what steps to take next. That could mean giving the seat to the person with the next most votes or a by-election.
I'm just going to follow what the councillors want to follow, what they want to go through, how they want to proceed. That's going to be up to them.
Councillor Kimberly Smith, the only woman on council, was chosen as deputy mayor last night. She received the most votes of any council candidates in the municipal election. Council will meet next on November 28th. A deadly explosion in Whitehorse yesterday sent debris flying hundreds of meters onto neighboring streets and properties. Today, neighbors and friends in the Riverdale neighborhood began clearing up what was left behind on Bates Crescent. Katie Todd has more.
Wood flung like matchsticks, documents strewn in trees, insulation dust scattered across the snow. The explosion blasted this metal doorknob into the kitchen of the house behind it. By a stroke of good fortune, that property owner wasn't home at the time.
He's up at that time making coffee. I mean, he was lucky not to be there. You can imagine this and so many other things just being exploded out. Incredible force.
Stephen Poirier helped organise a clean-up this afternoon. He says he's shocked by the extent of the damage.
Not a very pretty scene at all, and hopefully the snow will not come down for the next 24 hours so we can still scrape and rake, yeah.
One person died in the explosion and one is in hospital. Joan Stanton lives nearby. She says she's feeling helpless and sad. Stanton says it's a reminder of the hazards that can exist in our homes.
I know we went down to Canadian Tire and bought a propane detector last night. We were really concerned.
All that remains on the explosion site is piles of wood and rubble. Many nearby homes have broken windows and torn cladding. It may be some time before the cause of the explosion is known, and as for the cleanup, neighbours say they expect to be picking up debris for months. Katie Todd, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Nunavut's education minister says the territory is reviewing its student financial assistance program. The review comes amidst complaints by students that they aren't receiving their funding on time or at all. The FANS program, or Financial Assistance for Nunavut Students, has been in place since the territory's creation. It provides assistance for students attending post-secondary institutions. Minister Pamela Gross says that it's past due for a review.
We do know that it does need an overhaul. This program has been predates Nunavut, and it's been an issue for students for since the beginning of time for Nunavummiut, and it's an issue that we do really take seriously to challenge and tackle.
Gross says it's too early to say whether the review will result in increased payments to students or offset the growing cost of living. Today was the deadline to apply for fans for the winter semester. The Canadian Coast Guard recently visited Nunavut. It's the latest stop for a program that trains community volunteers to respond to emergencies. The program is called Indigenous Search and Rescue. It teaches volunteers about marine rescue techniques and radio operations during an emergency. Each program is individually tailored to the community's needs and is seen as a more inclusive approach to emergency preparedness.
It's a knowledge sharing exchange rather than, kind of more of the traditional classroom format. And, we're really fortunate that the Guardians that we've worked with have been very engaged and provided excellent feedback, and they're really wonderful to work with. And so we've really been able to engage on this journey together to make something that's going to be valuable for everybody.
Sharon says they've completed training in 5 Nunavut communities so far, and they're hoping to expand the program across the territory. There's a new option in Montreal for those looking to reduce waste and save money on construction projects. Architects Without Borders has launched a joint venture with a non-profit storefront operation in Montreal. Like the Habitat for Humanity Restore model, the shop encourages people to reuse construction materials. The CBC's Kwabena Oduro dropped by to do some shopping.
From doorknobs to bathtubs to light fixtures, you can find all you need for a home renovation at the new Reco store.
People can come here in our brand new center and feel as comfortable to shop and identify products they like, just like they would do in a regular renovation center.
The items are donated from homeowners, contractors, and businesses.
People will come here and they would be glad to give a second life to these items.
With the cost of renovation materials rising, the store offers an economical option. It's a greener option too, helping reduce and reuse construction waste.
Construction architecture is responsible for more or less 30% of greenhouse gases, of trash, and of the resources we extract.
In return for a donation, you will get a receipt for a charitable donation.
When someone wants to make a donation, so we process that through communications, email, phone, pictures, and we have people who are specialized in appraising, in knowing the market, what sells, what does not.
The items are all sold tax-free. The proceeds will fund community projects through Architects Without Borders Quebec.
We have a mission to help the poor, to help the vulnerable communities.
The store will be open 5 days a week for now, and eventually every day of the week. If things go well with this store, the goal is to open a network of Recos across Quebec. Kwabena Oduro, CBC News, Montreal.
I'm Kathleen Goldhar, host of a new podcast, Crime Story. Every week, we bring you a different crime, told by the storyteller who knows it best. All the ins and outs.
It was a story of murder, of exploitation of a schoolgirl.
You got one witness who can't be found. You got another witness who has changed his entire story.
I remember just this feeling of complete disbelief.
Crime Story, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
You are constantly on the move, and so are we, making sense of the moments that matter together.
Looks like things are maybe winding down.
Asking what, why, when.
To the center of the biggest stories, meeting the people living them.
Thank you for letting us be here. What's your situation?
Making sense of our world.
How are we going to be part of this solution?
With you and for you.
Connectedness, groundedness.
I'm Adrienne Arsenault. This is The National.
Canadians of generations have been miseducated.
But we don't talk about that. We are here. We have been here.
These stories are us.
Yeah, dog!
An absolute classic.
All right. Let's go! Yeah!
This is The National.
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
These are acts of desperation.
Connecting politics to people.
Some people have lost everything.
Join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
After a tumultuous 4 years of COVID and climate disasters, NWT voters have decided their new legislative assembly, and they voted for change, sort of. Let's recap. Just 4 of 11 incumbents who ran in contested races took back their seats. But that doesn't mean we'll see a whole new roster of MLAs. 3 people are returning to the Legislative Assembly after a hiatus. They've served before, but not in the last assembly. And then there were the 3 acclamations in this election. Those were all incumbents. Stephanie Erlbacher-Fox joins me now to break down these results for us. She is with the School of Public Policy and Administration at Carleton University, and she's worked extensively with Indigenous governments and organizations in the Northwest Territories. Stephanie, thank you for being here. I want to start by getting your initial reaction to how last night went.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting mix. We have some has-beens returning after being out of office for at least 1 term, for some of them more. And then we had quite a number of new faces as well, mixed in with acclaims, and I think a good number of incumbents returning. So that should make for actually a pretty interesting mix.
Yeah, one of the points our political panel made last night on the election special that we had was that the 19th Assembly had a lot of new faces, new people to the Legislative Assembly, and then this new batch we're seeing has quite a lot of experience, whether it's former MLAs who lost in other years, decided to run again this year, or people who served on town councils. So what does that tell you that we're getting this new batch with quite a bit of experience, maybe compared to the last Legislative Assembly?
I tend to think that people who distinguish themselves in any area of endeavor have experience that's relevant and that's interesting. I almost wonder if it's a bit of a disadvantage if we have a lot of people with the same kinds of experience. And unfortunately, when it comes to elections, name recognition counts for a lot. So people may be comfortable with people who've been on the town council or here in Yellowknife on the city council. Certainly these people may have day jobs that are quite different. But I also think it potentially narrows the experience that would be really great to have in the assembly.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for new MLAs?
In this last assembly, there was some pretty bad behavior on behalf of some MLAs. We saw some vendettas that played out at the expense of the entire territory. We saw MLAs flouting the rules, not taking responsibility. I think the challenge is that we're in a very difficult situation economically. We've got big issues to tackle, like housing, like the economy, cost of living. So if we have a legislative assembly that is not walking the same path together, supporting one another, keeping the focus on doing what's right for the people, instead serving their own petty agendas and personal self-interest, the territory could be in real trouble.
And in this batch of MLAs that will now be working together, were there any surprises that stuck out for you last night in the results?
I think some of the surprises, definitely. I think seeing a couple of cabinet ministers lose their seats. Wally Schuman, who ran again and announced very early, there was a lot of talk that he was a shoo-in to get in. That didn't happen. And that in the community of Hay River, which has been through a lot, and I'm sure that community will expect a lot of the MLA that they have elected. Also, I think Ron Bonnet Rouge, who was talking about running for premier, was not returned. So those, I think, were some interesting things. Also, really tight races. So I think we had about 4 MLAs where the vote spread was anywhere from 30 votes to less than 100 votes, and also races where more people voted against the MLAs who were successful. So yeah, I think there are always surprises in elections. This is the fun part about elections, I think.
Yeah, it is certainly interesting to watch the results roll in and see what people are thinking, taking the temperature of the territory. I mean, with that in mind, what will you be watching for in the next assembly?
The Northwest Territories is at its debt limit. It has, major costs that it's likely going to face that are predictable with respect to climate disasters. It has a federal government that has demonstrated it's not terribly interested in investing. So, there are a few people I think who could be running for premier. I think this assembly needs to really grapple with who would be the best person in that job to sit at national tables, to have credibility, and how will this assembly conduct itself so that when cabinet ministers and the premier go to Ottawa, sit with other governments, their provincial territorial counterparts, that they will be taken seriously. I think this government, this new cabinet, the new premier really has to reach out to Indigenous governments, to other stakeholders and partners so that they can go with a united voice to Ottawa, and also to just work in a really cooperative way together, in a collaborative way. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to work in the interests of the residents. So I think we're kind of entering a new era where things are serious. We have some very serious problems. We've got some, opportunities that are their own kinds of challenges, and it will really take everyone working together, particularly those within the Assembly, regular members as well as Cabinet and the Premier.
Stephanie, thank you so much for your thoughts on this today. I really appreciate your time and your insight.
You're welcome. Thank you.
An Inuk artist from Kuujjuaq has written a new book. It tells the story of how he and an Arctic wolf pup became unlikely friends. The book is called Wolf Pup. It was written by Atwa Snowball. He says he grew up on the land with his family as a young boy, and he wanted to write about his experiences living at their traditional Inuit camp, surviving on the land, and how Inuit associate with land and animals.
So it's very important for Inuit to tell our part of the story and, become a part of society where we share our history and our identity as well. And that way it will always be there for our future children, that's what it's all about.
Snowball says his book will be available in April of 2024. The new Professional Women's Hockey League marked another key milestone today. Training camps opened for each of its 6 teams. In Montreal, it's a new beginning for the team's players who are eager to make their mark on hockey in Canada. Sarah Aldaba reports.
I feel I'm a kid at Christmas. It's so fun coming here to the rink, having everybody under the same roof.
The captain of Canada's women's hockey team is feeling the excitement that this new women's league is becoming a reality, although it took a lot of hard work.
It's unbelievable the amount of hours been done, and obviously there's going to be things that are not necessarily ready, and it's part of it, and we're all aware of that. They've been very open with that, but I think it's going to be fun. I think right now we're in our markets. We're going to start from scratch.
A few of those things are still not ready. The team has no name or logo, but the first jerseys were unveiled yesterday. Montreal's colors are burgundy and beige. Laura Stacy can't wait to put them on. She says she has been waiting to play for a professional league her whole life.
We never really thought this was possible. We never dreamt or thought about playing professionally, and now we're here. We showed up today. We met a whole new group of teammates, people we've never played with before, never even met before. And so I think there's not really many words to put it into perspective, to be honest, but other than excitement.
The team will be practicing at the High Performance Hockey Centre at the Verdun Auditorium, the only of its kind in Canada. The team's general manager says they only had a few weeks to put the team together.
We want to share as much as possible with the players about what's going on behind closed door, because it's a matter of learning together. We need to build this together. We need to make sure that we're taking care of each other in a sense that we are fast-tracking a lot of things.
Sauvageau says the team will only hit the ice on Saturday and their first game will be sometime in early January. Sarah Aldaba, CBC News, Montreal.
Those training camps are undoubtedly a big moment for hockey in Canada today, but they weren't the only big thing happening in the sport. Today could arguably be called one of the most anticipated days on the school calendar for Yellowknife high schoolers because today was the Challenge Cup. That is a friendly hockey tournament between the city's two high schools, Sir John Franklin and St. Patrick. And we went down to check it out.
Today's Challenge Cup. Go Irish, we're here. We're hearing all the noise. All the students have been pumped up for weeks. We had pep rallies yesterday. Everybody's super excited to be here, cheer on both the schools, both the teams, and this is what school spirit is all about. Go Irish!
The energy is fantastic, and I just love how we get to do this for the students. I love how much they're enjoying it, even though I don't know much about sports, but I know that they like it. So I had not heard about Challenge Cup until I was working in education, but I can clearly tell that it's a very important, it's lovely to see both schools together in one spot, just celebrating and enjoying each other, and let's go Falcons.
Pretty much a Challenge Cup, you know, the biggest game of the year, Sir John St. Patrick's. We're losing right now, but we have a chance, you know, St. Patrick's can get back in action, you feel me? Yo, Sir John, be ready for basketball. Be ready for basketball.
Oh, it's been great. Both sides fans have been phenomenal. You're cheering on their teams. A lot of good sportsmanship. Go Falcons, go.
There's a lot of energy. Kids are super excited. Staff are excited. It's a great event. See the kids cheering.
This is my first Challenge Cup. This is my first year in Yellowknife. I'm so excited to be here. I'm learning so much about the traditions of both the schools, of Yellowknife as a culture and as a whole. And it's so great to see my students outside of the classroom and in the ring.
Man, that looks like a lot of fun. Such great energy in that. Thank you so much to Carson Asmundson for putting that together. Now, if anyone was wondering, the final score for both games was 4-1 for Sir John Franklin, but it looks like a fun time regardless of the scores. That is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. We leave you with a look at the weather. Have a good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
You're not a millennial.
Yeah, well, Dr. Dre's not a doctor. I feel like such an imposter.
You need money to survive.
He had something to hide.
Try typing with your thumbs.
What do you call it?
It's called a BlackBerry.
Huh. We call them crackberries.
There's a serial killer on the loose.
2 attacks in a week.
Go on. Everybody's got something to hide.
We're not gonna be here forever, right? Makes me want to make some changes.
Your family can't take much more.
Think you're a better driver when you're high? Think again. No alcohol, no drugs, no victims. A message from Mad Canada.
I want my children home where they should be.
You'll go to jail if you don't sign.
There's gonna come a time you'll feel the darkness. You don't let them win.
I understand that you're struggling emotionally.
Sure you want to do this?
I mean, it's research, right? You need to stop asking me for things I can't give you. You've done it my whole life.
We have an incredible show lined up for you tonight.
Wow!